Hello YouTube and welcome back. This time we are learning about Girl Scout cookies. I've never had a Girl Scout cookies. Girl Scouts aren't really a thing here, so I've never had them, never tried them. But this is apparently the original recipe from 1922. Today I will be standing while doing the react because I'm currently using my standing desk. So if the tracking is off, I am sorry. It's my first time ever standing while watching a video. Let's go!
My niece sends me a text asking if I'll buy some Girl Scout cookies, and I always happily oblige. But while she's selling the cookies, she's not baking the cookies. But
interesting.
Back in the early years of the Girl Scouts, each Scout would bake her own cookies using this recipe from 1922. So thank you to my Patreon patron for sending me the idea to make these original Girl Scout
biscuits my
cookies.
grandma
This time
does.
on Tasting History.
Yeah, I really love his channel. He's like super educational and informative, and the recipes are super easy to follow.
First, I want to let you know that when this video actually comes out, I will be in Europe doing some research for a few upcoming videos. So if you want to follow those travels, I'm going to mostly be posting on Instagram at Tasting History with Max Miller.
Interesting.
Now, here in the US, there is at least one thing that we can all agree on. Girl Scout cookies are fantastic. From trefoils to thin mints, Samoas to tagalongs.
I didn't know you had so many variants. What the heck? Wow. The ones on the bottom with the caramel, they look so nice. I can't agree with the Girl Scout thing because I've never had them.
Ordering these cookies every year is a time-honored tradition. But
chat, how hard is it for someone to send it to the P.O. box? I don't know how hard it is with cookies to send it, but like, damn.
When the tradition first began, the selection was rather meager. There was actually only one cookie available. It was this recipe, which was printed in the American Girl magazine in July 1922.
Forward march!
Attention Scouts! Forward march! Bake, sell! This is your chance to show how much scouting means to you. Girl Scout cookies. 1 cup of butter or substitute. 1 cup of sugar. 2 tablespoons of milk, 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder,
teaspoon of
cream,
vanilla?
butter, and sugar, add well-beaten eggs, then milk, flavoring, flour, and baking powder. Roll thin and bake in a quick oven. Sprinkle sugar on top.
That sounds really easy to do.
6 to 7 dozen. So essentially, it is a simple sugar cookie, which, if I'm not mistaken, is not actually one of the options for Girl Scout cookies today. But it had to be simple because it was the Girl Scouts themselves doing the actual baking. I don't think many young girls would be up for tempering chocolate to properly form a Thin Mint today.
Imagine asking kids to temper chocolate. Oh wait, I did that. To be fair, I was part of like the Olympic chemistry group, so I went in a chocolate factory and I was able to like learn all about the factory and the producing and manufacturing and the formulas for chocolate and everything. So like, yeah, working with chocolate is fun, chat. Smeghead. Damn, that name. Thank you so much for gifting 5 subbies to the community.
Also, the recipe needed to be simple because the Girl Scouts were under the scrutiny of the viewing public while they were doing the baking.
Really?
Back in November of 1923, when the cookies were sold in the fall, a Massachusetts newspaper invited readers to do a good...
Shut up! Don't beat me up! I picked him up and he started whacking me with his paw. He was like, bam, bam, bam! Over the face, he was like, let me go, woman, I don't want to be here. Oh.
Good turn for your stomach. Buy Girl Scout cookies tomorrow. Watch the 16 Girl Scouts bake cookies in the window of the Lynn Gas and Electric Company. Encourage the future homemakers.
Encourage the future homemakers! That's weirdly wholesome. Like, actually weirdly wholesome. Huh. I like that. My grandmother was schooled for like being basically a home woman. So like she has a lot, like let me just tell you, she had a lot of recipes, like a lot of delicious sweets and snacks and stuff, and she was able to do amazing stuff. It was wholesome. Like, for the time and the period, right? You were expected to be a housewife anyway, right? It was kind of wholesome to be like, encourage people and have them like show their skills and like stuff like that. Sure, you could say like now from our perspective and glance it's sexist, right? But back then, you had to do that anyway. So having someone encourage you to do things instead of it just being expected of you is nice. You still have the sexism. You just have it coated in a different way now. People are like, well, men are expected to be able to fix everything. You guys are supposed to know how to fix everything in the house. It's quote unquote your job. But you get no praise or thanks for it. You're just supposed to do it. And if you fuck it up, well, you're a failure. Again, not my opinion. I don't expect that of people, and I don't think that, but it is something that people do expect. So.
Now, this public spectacle was partly to drum up enthusiasm for the Girl Scout cookies, but also partly because not everyone had an oven in their home at the time that was capable of baking a bunch of cookies. Luckily,
makes sense,
I do have such an oven, so let's get to baking some cookies.
Sorry, I'm a failure. You're not a failure! You're supposed to fail and learn by doing things. I repair random shit and I'm like, well, it gets the job done. It's not pretty, but at least it hangs on the wall now. Oh.
First off, you need to make sure your butter is softened. Also, this recipe doesn't include any salt, and that's because they would have been using salted butter. So if you go for unsalted, make sure to add about a half teaspoon of salt in with the flour. So take your softened butter and cream it with the sugar in a bowl until it's nice and smooth. Then beat the eggs and incorporate them into the mixture. And once mixed, add in the milk and the vanilla and mix those in as well. In a separate bowl, whisk together the flour and baking powder, and if you're using it, the salt, and then add about half of that to the batter and gently mix by hand just until the flour is incorporated. Then add the rest of the flour and continue to mix.
This is really easy. Like, this recipe is super easy to follow around. I might actually try and make the original recipe myself then. I don't know, I've baked stuff. I've baked muffins and other things, so how hard can it be to bake cookies?
Now, it's best to do this by hand, just so you don't build up too much gluten in the flour. And here is where I can only imagine 100 years ago, many Girl Scouts were incredibly frustrated because the recipe says to roll this dough out. But it is absolutely not rollable. Even if you used very small eggs and heaping cups of flour, it is a very sticky dough right when you make it. So you can't roll it out without chilling it, which probably wouldn't have been an option for many people. I did chill it, and even then, it was still really, really hard to roll out.
Don't you just put flour like on like the rolling pin and flour on the surface? Isn't that enough? Interesting. So it's extra sticky.
I had to put it between two pieces of parchment and add extra flour on the top. And yeah, it was rough. And this really bummed me out because I went on to eBay and bought this original, it's actually from the 1950s, trefoil cookie cutter, which was sent to people from Dripinator. Dripilator? I don't know.
The better drip coffee maker.
Anyway, I wanted to make like the original trefoil design, but it was not happening.
Oh,
I was finally able to get a few made after I froze the dough solid, but surely this was not the author's intent. I think much more effective than trying to roll this dough is to form the dough into balls
and then just press
them onto a cookie sheet, leaving several inches between because they're going to spread quite a lot. Also, the recipe
you don't
says
even press it.
6 to 7 dozen, which seems ambitious. I went with 6 dozen, and that means that each cookie is only going to be 9 grams, which is considerably smaller than the modern cookies. Whatever size you do decide to make them, set the cookie sheets in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 Celsius for 10
only
to 12
175?
minutes until they begin to brown around the edges.
Damn.
And as soon as you take them out, sprinkle plenty of sugar over the top while they are still warm.
Oh, they look so good. It reminds me of my grandma's cooking. Not gonna lie, she used to make these and they're like so nice. I wonder if it's the exact same recipe as well.
As I said, I tried to use this cookie cutter, but those cookies ended up spreading so much that they completely lost any shape. So I recut them when I took them out of the oven.
I was gonna say, what if they actually cut them afterwards when they take them out of the oven? Huh.
but that is not ideal. That said, I was so intent on using this cookie cutter to make some trefoils that I ended up making some just kind of generic shortbread dough, which is what trefoils ended up being. So I did make some that held their shape pretty well. So in the end, I believe it was a worthwhile eBay purchase. But that is my cookie journey, and we're not here to talk about my cookie journey. We are here to talk about the cookie journey of the Girl Scouts.
Let's go, history time!
The year was 1911, and Juliet Gordon Low, known to her friends as Daisy, was traveling around England.
Daisy?
Following the death of her husband, she was looking for something to fill the void, to give her life a new purpose. She tried sculpture, she tried traveling, she tried charity work, but it wasn't until she met Sir Robert Baden-Powell at a party in May of that year that she realized what her life's work was meant to be. See, Baden-Powell...
Ah, yes! What am I meant to do in life? Cook. Honestly, for some reason, cooking is very satisfying in the sense that you have steps to follow, and then you follow those steps initially before you kind of get used to, like, you know, eyeballing it. In baking, less so eyeballing, more measuring, but still. You follow those steps and you get a result, and then you can enjoy that result or see other people enjoy that result. So, like, cooking is very much a dopamine thing. Yeah, baking is more science. But, like, I loved cooking in high school for, like, my classmates. I was learning new recipes because I was curious. I was in this Japanese course for learning the language. You could also sign up for extra courses with the same teacher to not only learn the language, but also learn how to cook, learn how to do the tea ceremony and how to make tea, learn how to do floral arrangements and stuff like that, right? So there were a bunch of different things that you could learn about the culture, the Japanese culture. And I used to do all the Japanese recipes that I was taught in the class. I used to do them at home, try them. But because I would not really know how much I should do, like do a smaller portion, I would end up doing a portion that's for, like, I don't know, 8 people. So, you know, it was just me, my mom, and my dad. So I was like, I'm gonna take it to school with me. So then I would see my classmates be like, holy shit, you made this. This is so amazing. And bask in that glory of being praised for delicious food. Not to mention everyone thanking me because they didn't have breakfast.
Powell was the man behind a group known as the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
And at this time, his group had about 40,000 members throughout Europe and the US, and his
40,000? What happened to the Boy Scouts? I only ever known about, like, the Girl Scouts. I don't think I've ever heard of the Boy Scouts.
His enthusiasm for the program was contagious. Soon after becoming acquainted, Baden-Powell introduced Mrs. Lowe to his sister, Agnes, who headed up an offshoot of the Scouts known as the Girl Guides.
You never heard of them? No, I've never heard of the Boy Scouts. They're still there, just don't sell the cookies.
This group taught young women everything from how to spin wool to care for livestock to knitting, cooking, and even first aid. There was also a degree of military preparedness on the agenda, something the Boy Scouts focused on. This included everything from camping to military drills to signaling. And this, Mrs. Lowe realized, was her calling. So she went back to Savannah, Georgia in 1912, where she was from, and immediately contacted her cousin, saying, I've got something for the girls of Savannah, and all America, and all the world, and we're going to start it tonight. And within weeks, she had formed the first 2 American Girl Guides patrols, consisting of 18 girls. Now, Lowe hoped to merge her guides with the larger group of Campfire Girls, which was run by James E. West,
was a Campfire
who also ran the Boy Scouts of America. But West considered many of the activities that Lowe wanted her girls to participate in, like the military drills and the camping, to be less than feminine. And so if her girls were doing the same activities as the Boy Scouts, what would that say about the masculinity of the Boy Scouts? Clearly, the man was rather insecure. But Lowe said, to heck with the camp.
Yes, why would you want your women able to help during a war?
Fire Girls and the Boy Scouts, and after consulting her British counterparts, established a new headquarters in Washington, D.C., began a recruiting program, and changed the name from the Girl Guides to the Girl Scouts.
Very fascinating. If you look at the picture, they all have short hair. Look at all their cuts, their bowl cuts and everything. I wonder if they just had to have shorter hair to be a part of it, or if they just were the tomboyish variants where they had it.
Something James E. West tried to stop, worrying that the boys would abandon the Boy Scouts due to the similarity in name. Of course, he was wrong. Nobody abandoned the Boy Scouts because they had a similar name, and he failed to stop the name change anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The Girl Scouts were here to stay. They grew from 18 girls in 1912 to 5,000 in 1915 and to over 50,000 by the time that the cookie drive started in the early 20s. Now, technically, the first Girl Scout cookie sale was in 1917 in Muskogee, Oklahoma, when the Mistletoe Troop sold cookies in their local school cafeteria to raise some funds. But it was a one-off, and it wasn't necessarily part of the Girl Scouts as a whole, but it likely influenced the later larger cookie sales. Those seem to have started in 1922 when a more organized cookie sale was established, though even then it was far from nationwide. It was more of a suggestion of a way to raise funds, which appeared in the Girl Scouts magazine, The American Girl. It was a plan suggested by a local director of the Girl Scouts in Chicago, Illinois, a Miss Florence E. Neal. And it says, all troops are asked to bake and sell cookies. We are enclosing recipe to be used, which makes 6 to 7 dozen. Material will cost from 26 to 36 cents. These cookies will sell for 25 to 30 cents a dozen, depending on your neighborhood. Several troops plan to use the money to start a camp fund. This is an excellent idea, and we would suggest that all troops do the same. This recipe, of course, is the one that we are baking today, and the author says that the cookies should be put into wax paper bags and then sealed with stickers with the Girl Scout logo. But it was important that the Girl Scouts didn't come off as common street urchins hawking their baked goods for a few pennies. So it instructed that cookies must not be sold in the street. Sell them at school or to your neighbors or friends, or have a cookie sale in your neighborhood store. But the best part of this first official
very fascinating, the fact that like you weren't supposed to like sell them in the street so you wouldn't be confused with the urchins, you know, like the lesser people.
Cookie sale was neither the recipe nor the instructions on where to sell them, but the inclusion of a little poem that I can only suppose was meant to be recited to prospective customers. Cookies large and cookies small, made by scouts both short and tall. What's your order? Phone us quick, so that we may do the trick. 30 cents is all we ask, and we find it is no task to deliver to your door dozens, 1, 2, 3, or more.
Aww.
I think I actually bought 18 dozen. Of course, they are for the purpose of filming this episode, so it's totally fine.
Yeah, of course. 18 dozen just for the video, wink. I was like, this is really cool. Like the origin of it and like how they were doing it.
Though you can
I wonder what they were using the money for
the next couple months as I just slowly chip away at them. Anyway, it seems that, at least according to newspapers from the time, that first year of cookie sales was pretty limited, mostly in and around Chicago. But the next autumn, they really took off. And that's partly because of a cookie lover in the White House. Girl Scout cookies for the president. A 5-foot bag of cookies baked by Manhattan Girl Scouts to be presented to the White House will be personally received by Mrs. Calvin Coolidge.
Damn! They were like, you know what? We're gonna use advertisement to our best. that is... They knew how to market.
The cookies are being baked according to the same recipe that the 1 million are treated to. One that has been approved not only by mothers, but also by grandmothers. The next week, newspapers ran images of the beloved First Lady Grace Coolidge eating one of the cookies that we are making today.
Aww.
But I ask you, did she like them? Well, if the Indianapolis Times is to be trusted, then Mrs. Coolidge likes Girl Scout cookies.
Of course,
but they are good, is what Mrs. Calvin Coolidge is saying as she eats one of the Girl Scouts cookies.
I mean, okay, so first of all, obviously, what was she gonna say? Like, yuck? Unless it was, like, really bad, what was she gonna say? Obviously, she's gonna say they're yummy, especially when a freaking little girl just spent time and baked them, right? Yeah, newspapers would definitely never lie either. Definitely never.
Scouts will sell millions of these delicacies soon to collect enough money to build a new home and for the next year's expenses. And with the First Lady's endorsement, Girl Scout cookies took off. And with Prohibition in full effect, the nation was looking to the Girl Scouts to provide them with something to take the edge off. And the Scouts were happy to do so. Girl Scouts to flood the city with cookies. Cookies! Girl Scout cookies, thousands of them. Crisp brown baked cookies. Saturday is the day of days for members of the Girl Scouts of Lynn. It will be their cookie day. From early morn until the supply is exhausted, Lynn will be swamped with cookies. As memberships in the Girl Scouts grew past a quarter of a million in the late 1920s, the sale of the cookies spread from one troop to another until in 1934 it came time to give the girls a break and turn the baking over to commercial bakeries. At the time, there were many, and they were licensed kind of city by city, and so there wasn't always complete uniformity between them. And even today, there are only 2 commercial bakeries now that bake them all, so they're more uniform, but the names are not, and I only learned this. So while I know Samoas and Tagalongs, in other parts of the country, they're called Caramel Delights and Peanut Butter Patties. Same cookies, totally different names, and I'm not...
Fascinating. Regional naming for the cookies themselves, even though they're made in a factory? Wow.
Exactly sure why. I don't know. It's absolute madness. Either way, neither of those cookies were around in the 1930s.
I assume it's because of the people that are living in those regions, how they grew up with it.
At that time, one of the most popular cookies was the vanilla and chocolate wafer, which was said to be the favorite of then First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. Though I think she's mad for not preferring the Cookie Mint, which premiered in 1939. This was a chocolate...
I like the way they spelled cookie. Cookie Mint! Look at that. Cookie Mint! What are the cookies made out of? Depends on which ones.
This was a chocolate and mint cookie, which would later also be called the Cookie Mint, the just chocolate mint, and eventually the Thin Mint. Unfortunately, the Cookie Mint only had a couple years on the market before everything came crashing down as the United States entered World War II. The rationing of eggs, sugar, and flour forced the Girl Scouts to abandon cookie production altogether, and instead they sold calendars. Everyone loves a calendar, right?
A calendar during the war? Damn, son. It's like, it's been 5 days since I was lost out to get some air.
Yeah, not as much as cookies. But as soon as the war was over and the rationing ended, the cookies came back. And by 1951, many of the staple cookies that are still around today, like Do-si-dos, trefoils, and Thin Mints, were already available, though under the much less exciting names of sandwiches, shortbreads, and chocolate mints. As baby boomers began to enter the Scouts in the late 50s and 60s, the sale of cookies skyrocketed, and it's never really gone away. This is partly because they're always introducing
Savannah Crunchy Sandwich Nut Butter Whip Center. That sounds so delish. What the heck? Chocolate and vanilla cream in the center.
Is introducing new cookies while keeping the classics like the Samoa, which was introduced in the 1970s, but also because there is a level of scarcity. They're only available one time a year, and so people stock up. I remember as a kid, my mom buying many Thin Mints and just stuffing them into our freezer so that they would last through the end of summer.
What? Really? That's crazy, man. Artificial scarcity to drive sales. I mean, true. But it's also easier in a way, right? To just have them as an event and keep it like an event in a way. It's so insane that people are buying a bunch and freezing them. I've never had cookies frozen. I never froze a cookie. My mind is being blown over the fact that people are putting them in freezers in the first place. I'm like, what?
She was a Thin Mintaholic. It also helps that the sale of the cookies goes to support a good cause, the Girl Scouts. It also helps that the cookies are being sold by the Girl Scouts. I mean, if I'm standing outside of a store selling cookies, I don't think it would go as well as my niece standing outside of a store selling cookies. But, as I said, she is not baking the cookies, she's just selling them. I actually baked these cookies, and so I'm going to keep them all to myself.
actually bake these, and I'm not gonna sell them. Yum, 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 yum.
And with that, I'll let this PSA from 1976 let you know.
The cookies are here!
And here we are, the original Girl Scout cookies from 1922. Like I said, they're not huge. They're only 9 grams of dough, so they're very thin. But
they look really nice.
Sugar
though.
on top really helps. They smell good. So here we go. Nice and crispy.
Damn, that's okay. His microphone's really nice. That was a nice crunch. It was like really nice. Damn. Why is there sugar on the cookie? They sprinkle a bit of sugar after the cookie's baked. Because the recipe said so.
I mean, it's a sugar cookie, but it's a delicious sugar cookie.
To be fair, the way I usually have them when I had them from my grandmother is just no sugar on it. They taste nice. It's like a nice, I don't know, it's just, it's the taste of home. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, it's simple, but it's good. It's nourishing, I guess. Or maybe just filling.
And I do like that they're nice and crisp. This is dangerous because these are the type of cookie that you can sit down and eat like 30 of without even noticing.
Yep.
I made 6 dozen. So I'll put this recipe up on the Tasting History website, tastinghistory.com, as I always do. Also, when you go there, you can sign up for the newsletter, which goes out once a month. And yeah, make some Girl Scout cookies or buy some Girl Scout cookies. Goes to a good cause. And I will see you next time on Tasting.
I need to make some cookies, chat. I need to make some cookies. God damn it.
Tasting History.
I need my kitchen renovated. Because my kitchen's a mess right now. Funny to see cookie recipe not having changed for 100 years. They don't sell these anymore though, Excellion. Like these original ones, they don't sell them anymore, at least according to the video. They have like super fancy ones now. It is a very basic recipe. Yes. It is a very basic recipe. But, you know, sometimes the basics are nice. Like, I don't know. Anyway, YouTube, thank you for being here. If you're still here somehow by the end of this video, type home in the comments. Thank you for watching. Until next time, bye!